So
Okay.
a second ago you just said when you first arrived
Yes.
here you met who?
I met, it was Bill and Garnet Oliver from up the West Twin, and they lived on the land with Sharon Oliver, their granddaughter, and they did cedar shakes the old-fashioned way, where you hit it with the birch hammer on the froe. I think it was called a froe or something, a sharper blade. And through them, they knew people in the Seniors Lodge, the Beaverview Seniors Lodge, and we would go over there and visit, and I met Louis Knutson and Francis Knutson, his wife. And they had one daughter named Francis Knutson. And
What struck you about them?
they were like historically first peoples that had come in here, and he'd lived at the bottom of the mouth of the Beaver River, which is now called the Holmes, and he built canoes out of cottonwood trees, and he trapped with Everett Monroe on the same trap line that I live on with Greg O'Match. And my name is Ilona Pallagi, by the way. And so when I came here in about 3 years after being here and knowing Bill and Garnet and Sharon Oliver, I got to know the loud, wild mountain man, Greg O'Match, and a few others like Rod Reimer, Chris D'Alessandro, and Andy Jones, Charlie Wakeman, and they're all outdoor kind of guys with bushy beards, and I'm running, like, whenever I came into town, and if they were in town, I'd run away, because they scared me, because they were all so burly, bushman-y, you know, and hunting and trapping was what they had done. And so after living on Mountain View Road, in the old Stewart cabin beside the Wayne and Joyce Zimmerman with the Mennonites, and I came here with my 2 children, Terry and Jody, and Jody was 7 and my son was 4. It was time to come out of there. I had no running water, no electricity, wood stove. I hauled water in, and the Zimmerman boys would cut my firewood. Oh my. And I did not, after being there for a while, the children were going to Mennonite school, because I only put them in the town school for a while, and I did not want them to become Mennonites. So after a while of living there, I moved to Lambing Mills, and I rented a little house from Wilma Loseth at the time, and stayed there one winter, and then meeting up with Grego and all of this kind of stuff going on, right, whenever I'd come into town. One day he said, why don't you come and live, and bring the children and come and live with him? So up the Beaver I went, and I took a look at the place, and I said, sure, I'm coming in, because I didn't need electricity and plumbing and all that modern stuff. I didn't really want it. I used to live in Canmore before I came here, and then before that I was in an apartment in Edmonton, and then my son being born in Calgary, and then before that I was in Lethbridge, Alberta, and I wanted to come over the mountains to see what was on the other side. So Sharon Oliver, the granddaughter of Bill and Garnet, she had a magazine article, Be My Pen Pal, in the Western Horseman. So I had written to her prior to moving here for about 2 years, and I said, I'm coming over. And they were welcoming and wanting me to stay, and she was only 18 at the time, and I was probably, I could have been maybe 26, almost 27. And with going back with meeting Grego, I said, sure, I'm going to move up there, and I've been there since 1986. In July I moved there, and I took Jody and Terry up, and we did correspondence school for them, and then the system kind of caught up down here. Your children should be in school. No bush babies. Now this is back in 86, 87, and a lot of bush baby families or children that were in the woods, the government was trying to pull them into the system, and I said, well, I'm not going to move to town for my children to go to school, so I decided to stay, and that's where I boarded them out to go to Mennonite school, so there wouldn't be any influence of television, the candy store, town life, or I didn't want to have them near radio, TV, and all of that. And even back then there wasn't any television two stations in the 80s here, and you could not listen to radio during the day. There was no FM. It was 8-track tapes. Like, this place was like 10 years behind the time of where I came from, and I loved it. Like, they had the old restaurant over here at the hotel, still had the booths, the jukebox with the record, and the little put the money in and thing, the quarter in and flip jukebox music. And they had banana splits and ice cream sundaes still in the glass bowls. You know, it's so old-fashioned. So this is going to be my home, and I've been here 31 years of probably May 1st of 2014. I'd say 31 years I've been here. And my son's still here. And my grandbaby, little Annabella. And what more should I say?
What did your friends and family think of you when you said you were living up in the bush?
Okay.
That's unique.
My mother came over first. She flew over and went to Edmonton, and then from there she got on the train. So she came in on the train. And I met her here, and I said, you're going to be staying at the Beaver View Lodge unless you want to stay with me in my home. And I took her up. I got some friend, because I didn't have a vehicle, and then I got Jody and Terry, and it was summer holidays, so they stayed with me for the summer holidays, which is May, June, July, and August, because Mennonites get longer summer holidays, school holidays. And I took my mom up there, and she says it reminded her of when she was a young girl, and she lived on a farm back in Picton, Ontario. That's near Toronto, Kingston, Lake Ontario there. And she didn't have any running water. So she thought this was really good, you know. But she had concerns about the wild animals and the river, because the children running out by the water. And she would always say, be careful with the wood stove, you know, and the kerosene lamps. Right.
Did you ever wake up to a grizzly in the yard?
I never had a grizzly in the yard, but I did see a moose one morning running across the yard in the wintertime with a wolf chasing after it. And the dogs started barking, but I held them in. And then later on that week, we've had two big dogs up there, Chewy and Foxy, and they came home with a moose leg. So I figured the wolf got the moose, and so Grego and I went on the snowshoes and we went tracking to go find it, and it was good, still like edible for us. It was, and so we had a winter moose. And that somehow works out good, because that's the way we find food sometimes. You know, when you can't do it with the hunting license, you can take what other animals leave behind, and I can use it for baits. And that's getting into a whole trapper story there, and learning about trapping, because I was learning the trapping part and the hunting part. And I took my course, and I got my trapper's license, and I did a course for hunting, so I got my hunting license. And there's a lot of crafts and things we make for, like, we call ourselves subsistence trappers and homestead type mountain people. And so now my son's doing the same. He's trapping, he's hunting, he's helping out on the trap line. And the little house that we always lived in there is falling apart, because it's about 60 years old, and it was built as a logging camp is where we live, and it was the cookhouse for the loggers and the women to do the laundry and feed the men. And so we've got a newer building that we built up there out of timber frame logs. Got to keep it looking old-fashioned. And again, no water pumps, no electric pumps, nothing like that, or just kerosene, candles, still the old-fashioned way. And we did get a skidoo though. We had 6 horses when I first went up there, and then we went down to 4, and then now it's no horses.
Were there any other families up there that lived in there?
No, there was no one else living there. Brian Monroe, his trap line of his father's in Everett Monroe, who ran it before. And I was up there when Everett Monroe would come up on his old beat-up skidoo and I would hitch rides with them. Or we'd hitch rides on logging trucks, but they would only come up like in the winter time. And so after that, then I got my own vehicles, but I've gone through a lot of them because the logging road ruined a lot of the vehicles. Now I've got a truck. Before it was all old beater cars. I wouldn't buy nothing brand new because I knew it was going to eventually shake apart. And so we're still up there.
What are you holding there?
These are actually, there's 3 and they're sable, they're marten, and they've been made into a nice shawl where they're tanned and they've got the plastic eyes. Like, this is how they would do it factory for apparel or clothing, accessories. And so these are marten, and they're light ones, and they do come darker. You can get them really nice and brown, or even bright yellow reds, and they are the trappers' main fur, because we're allowed to catch, some people can catch up to 100 of these if they're really running the line good, and the run is good and for the population, and they value from anywhere from maybe $75 to, I've heard of them as $175 for one. And so it all adds up for the trapper's fur check. And we do get wolverines, which are the next one, that are worth up to anywhere from $400 to $600. And that's the wolverine. And then there's the link, and those can go from $100 maybe to $300, if depending on the grade. And then there's trapline bears and otters, beavers, weasels, red squirrels. They even buy porcupine quills and guard hair. They're worth a lot by the ounce. I remember muskrats, skunks. We don't have raccoons here unless they come in on the train. And that has happened before. There was sighting of a raccoon in town, and they got it out of here real quick, because they don't want, they're nasty little guys getting in the garbage and stuff, like in Ontario, where I come from. And then we've got, I don't know, and I eat the beaver, and I eat the bear. We can eat link. You can eat owls. They're good, but those we don't like to trap, but by accident sometimes they get in. So we try to save everything. We don't want to waste anything, And so they become crafts, feathers for crafts. Some people out there, they'll buy feathers for feather jewelry. Then we've got the quill buyer who does quill jewelry, and other people want skulls and teeth and claws. Maybe Gregor cuts the leg bones to make beads for hat bands. Then there's other people want fur pieces, anything, and I hand tan. I prefer to deal with tan products because it's a little complicated when it's green. Like, you have to have special paperwork and everything to sell that way, to send over the border. They call it CITES or something, for green fur to go that way. So I hand tan it all myself in alum or hemlock. It's a good one. Never did the native brains and the urine. No, it's too messy. I don't want to get in there. So I do it the clean way. And those kind of things I would like in the winter when you're doing crafts, because it's dark. You're in by 4:30. You don't want to get out. You're freezing. You gotta get up at 2 and keep the fire going. I don't remember any being up there any real close calls. Gregor's been in an avalanche once with the horses and survived, but that was way before me. And sometimes he'll go through the ice, the first layer, tapping with this to get across. A few times I've been willow whipped when Gregor's in front and the branch, he lets go and he goes, look out, and I'm not fast enough, and smack. Those kind of things. But no, it's been a good experience, a good life, and I'm glad my son, out of the 4 children, because Grego's got 2, Raven and Travis, and then mine are Jody and Terry, and out of the 4 children, only my son decided to be the trapper. The other 3 are kind of like gone to the city and the technology and computering and raising families that way. And we have chickens, and we get our own eggs. Like right now we've got chickens up there, and we'll eat the chicken and put it up for the winter. A lot of canning goes on with the hunting. I got bear meat in the jar, beaver meat's in there, and then you get the moose seasonal, and then I've got ducks, but they're mostly just to entertain on a little pond in the back. We don't eat them, but we winter them. And then many cats, cat explosion population, wild ones and tame ones. And then we've got 3 dogs. So we're good in the family. We call them our family. The ducks, chickens, and the cats and dogs. That's part of our family. And they entertain. They entertain us. Along with the squirrel, he'll entertain us too, because we leave peanuts and stuff for the pet squirrel in the yard. We won't trap around the yard. And so being in this valley and watching it hasn't, to me, if you don't mind I say, changed too much. Population explosion hasn't really happened. Everything's still sort of moving at a slow pace. They've managed to keep a lot of the old buildings, which is good, and they've just painted them a bit. And we do find that, things are more expensive now. And there's only, certain types of food you can buy in the store. And so we've tried gardening, but it doesn't work that far back in the mountains. It's too cold, or everything grows small, little potatoes, little carrots, stuff like that. Lettuce in the greenhouse is good. And then there's a lot of berry picking, huckleberries, blueberries, Saskatoon berries, and then you can get into wild raspberries, and all the fruits are there, and different other types of foods, plantain, and I've got grizzly asparagus, that's false Solomon seal, that you can eat, and fiddleheads that grow, and I know where they all are, and the cranberry bushes. So I've got my own private picking place. I don't tell nobody, even where the huckleberries are. I'll never tell anybody, especially Mennonites, because you have to take the whole family and whoop, they're gone. They're fast pickers.
How far is it from your front door then to downtown McBride?
Okay, it's a 15-kilometer logging road trip south to Highway 16 to the stop sign. Okay, and then from there you got to go west on Highway 16 to go to McBride, and I've calculated that could be another 10 kilometers. So in all, what's that coming to, about 25 kilometers? But in the other measurement, I've always figured it was 10 miles from the house to the highway, and then put on another 12 or 14 to town. So when you're walking out in the summer, it takes 3 hours to walk from the house to the highway, and then you hitchhike if you don't have somebody, because no cell phones for us, no calling ahead. You're at the highway, and whoever's coming, it's usually people we know. We are on the highway of tears, so I'm very careful, and then in the winter time when I've walked out, it'll take an extra hour, about 4 hours, if I'm on a skidoo trail now. But back in the day, it was snowshoeing, so it took about 5 hours for me and Grego to walk out on snowshoes with packs. And I have struggled in deep snow where you're still sinking in snowshoes. But we're going to town, we gotta go. It's Christmas time, there's a dance, there's something socializing to do. We've been there too long and we need more food. So we were doing a lot of that. But now we skidoo out, and it's boom, you're there in not even an hour. And in the summer, we used to come out on just regular pedal bikes and just coast downhill. But it's harder to ride at home with everything on your back and that. And I have used bicycles, me and Grego, to go hunting And of course we went grizzly bear hunting, and then that is an incredible story. And I didn't have a camera, and it was kind of wet that morning. You're foggy, you go in the early morning to hunt, and we were going to the back behind the house to grizzly bear hunt on bicycles. And I'm coming around the corner, and Gregor goes, "There's one, stop." So I put the brakes, slipped in the wet logging road, gravel and mud, went over sideways. The bear looked up, he looked at me, he was coming toward me, and all I had was me and the bicycle, and I'm laying on the ground. I'm going, "Oh no, now what are we going to do?" Grego, shoot, it's a nice one, take it. It's coming. And he got getting ready to take aim and everything, but then the bear spooked and ran off. And I thought, close encounter. And I have had other encounters when I've walked out in the spring and the bear was coming towards me, and I was wanting to go where it is, and I'm going, "No way, I'm not turning around and going back." So I'm up the tree and lickety-split and I'm hanging on, and then that bear, he just moseyed along and he went past, and I'm on the side of the road and I'm swaying, and I'm going, "How did I even get up here?" Like, I don't know how I jumped so fast, right? And so the bear went on, and I watched him go, and then that's when I said, "I'm going to town, so nothing will stop me." I'm going to town, and I'm going to visit my children, because they were boarded down here, and in this bear encounter story. And so I get down to the campground, and the tree planters camp is there, and the cook is there, but the tree planters are gone planting somewhere. And I went and I sat on the bench, and he comes out and he said, "Where'd you come from?" I says, "I came from up the Beaver. I walked out." And he says, "No, it's not possible." He says, "A bear was just here in the campground, and it was heading up the road." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I met it on the way out. And I was sitting in a tree waiting for it to go." And he says, "My gosh," he said, "I can't believe it. A woman's coming out of the woods." He doesn't know anyone lives back there. He's probably a city guy, right? And all of a sudden, a bear is there's supposed to be something going on, but I said, "No, I'm fine, I can handle it." And so I got to the highway, and then I hitched the hike in, and of course I gotta tell my friends, it took me a while to get this bear thing, but the bears are getting actually a little more aggressive. I don't know. We're trying to figure out, with the environmental changes that our Earth is experiencing right now, that a lot of the food isn't growing for them seasonally. So when they come out now, they're more aggressive, and they want to really check out the human. Like, what are you? Something to eat? Or I don't really fully understand it. Like, that's why they're all coming into, the bears and the deer and the animals are all coming into town, because their food source out there, maybe it's delayed in the growth of whatever nutrients and stuff they need for when they have their babies. Like, they're all carrying the babies are going to be born in May and June, and then they have their babies and they have to feed their babies. And so we're told as trappers to watch the changes and report to the University of British Columbia, or the biologists, the butterfly people, the bat people, all these different birds and stuff. So my life and Grego's, we observe, watch, and report. That's the logo that they say for the conservation office. And it's not just look for illegal hunters and stuff. It's look for how the wild animals are doing and behaving and stuff like that. And population of things. That's another thing trappers do. We keep track of how many animals that are happening around in certain areas. And so it's been, it's an interesting kind of thing, and we figure we got another 20 some years to go. We could keep on doing it. We're not going to come down, me and Grego, and retire in McBride. No way. We're not going to a senior's home. We're going to stick it out, stay on the land, and because we're homesteaders too, we made our claim, and maybe just walk right off into the woods, and because I'm not going to the cemetery. and Greg goes, and my children say, Mom, what are you talking about? I says, Greg and I, when we feel we're getting too old, we can't handle it anymore, or this technology advances, it gets too futuristic, we're just gonna go to our private place that we have. It's a honeymoon place, and it's up there, and our families will know at that time, and we're with nature. And I don't see why we can't be allowed to do such a thing. I am sure people have done it, and they're still doing it, but I've always thought of the legal thing, but I don't want to be involved in politics or anything anymore, at that time. So I'm still wanting to live. I don't want to go yet because I've still got a lot of stuff to do, and so does Grego. And I've got 6 granddaughters, and Grego's got a grandson and a granddaughter by his daughter, because we do have separate children here. Okay, and so I've got to stick around and see if any of them become trappers and outdoor people without electricity and technology. And I don't know how we're going to pull them out of the system of cell phones and stuff, because
well, good on you,
things
Ilona.
like that.
You're really unique,
yeah,
in the valley.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
Well, we're celebrating 100 years of McBride,
That's
right?
right.
You're one of the few people that's actually living very similar to how they were living 100
to the
years
way
ago, I think,
the elder, like Louis Knudsen, Eugene Rominski, Jack Damien, Bill Oliver, all of those people lived without the electricity, and we've just sort of kept it going. And there may be others out in the valley, that are doing it too.
They have a particular philosophy that you remember? That stuck with you?
I can remember Bill Fullen, and he was out with the Fergusons over here on Ferguson Hill past the La Grande, and that was where his chopping line was there, and LaSalle Lake, and he always said, take time to see. Right? And then there was another man named Rudy Schuffelbein, and he says, what is it? He kind of said, the mountains are deceiving. Something about the mountains were deceiving to catch you and here, but if you persevere, you will survive in the valley of the Robson Valley. And he was a Billy old timer, and he said, persevere, be strong, keep going, and he was more into dirt, a farmer. He was a Polish farmer. Right? And then there was probably I can't quite place too much at the top of my mind right now.
Well, that's okay. I just we appreciate
those
your
are good
time
enough.
today. No, that's great stories. Yeah,
and
thank you.
So
we'll try to hook up with Grego tomorrow. We'll keep our eyes peeled for him.
Okay, and then when you get him in here, he'll have a totally different kind of stories to tell.
That's okay.
When he came here.
You should get your signature too, just so you know that. So you acknowledge that you knew you were being filmed, right?
The permission.
Yeah.
No, I look fine. Did I move around enough?
No, it's great.
I don't know how I am, and I'm not really camera shy. I just wanted to know if I was. I didn't want
beautiful green eyes, like the way your scarf is.
Oh,
that's what I was noticing too. Your scarf and your eyes.
Really brings your eyes out. You've got.
And this is the little thing. Yeah, Grego's on the computer. I think Carla Trask came up, and she had a form for him to sign.
Really?
And it was something on the computer where they were looking for odd people, and it was mainly for photographs.
Yeah.
And then their name on the bottom, and then they were going to do something, but I never got to see it. So I've covered this already, if I understand.
If you want to sign
Interviewee,
there.
yes.
And then are you okay with us sharing your stories in the archive at the library?
Oh yeah. Okay. Are you showing it to the young people?
Yeah.
And trying to teach them a little bit more? Oh, I made a mistake.
Oh, what'd you?
I wrote on the top.
Oh, that's fine. Don't worry.
You want me to print somewhere?
Yeah, you can just print on the next one.
On the next
This
one.
is, The important part is your signature.
Yeah. I'm being messy now.
That's okay.
Maybe I'm a little nervous. I don't know why. When I get to paperwork, I got so much paperwork I got to do.
It's pretty daunting.
And my date of my birth.
You don't
Okay.
have to put that if you don't want to.
I was born in Ontario. Toronto, of all places. My mother had me in Toronto, and then we moved out into the countryside near Oakville, Ontario, more down toward Niagara Falls. Yeah. No, I don't have to do that one.
You don't have to.
Okay.
All right. And,
It's a little messy, but
oh, that's quite
yeah,
fine. And then if you're okay with putting it in the open public access so we
Yeah.
can share with everybody, I'll just check that box there.
yeah, okay.
Thank you very
I
much.
think the children would like that. Maybe
I
they would
think
be
so, too.
observing and watching.
It's interesting. It's really
I
fun.
did a sit like this, but not telling my whole life story. But I did a thing for the SPCA, and I had a little baby kitty, and I was holding it, and they're filming me, and I'm going like, I will take care of this poor little thing, and I'll make it grow. And I told the whole story, and then I did get to take the little kitten home and feed it with the eye drop, and it didn't survive. I was so upset, and I made that film of me sitting out in Prince Rupert, and they were trying to get people to take care of baby kittens, and that was the last time I was on a camera, talking.
That's a sad
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
That would make me really
Yeah, and so, but animals, I like the animals, and you know, we get told as trappers that, I don't want this on the tape or anything,
Oh, it can't
that
be turned off.
a lot of people don't like that. We don't really